Who's going for coffee? Who's going for coffee? So no one's going for coffee. Who's going for coffee?
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Who's Going for Coffee. With me today is Brother William Cosmo. How we doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Richie.
Right.
This is, I got to say, it's a real pleasure to be here with you. I think what you guys are doing is, it's a great thing. It's really slingshotting, our organization here into the forefront of what's going on in the world today. So it keeps us relevant.
Yeah, I think, listen, I'm 61 years old, and, you look at podcasts and all the young people, it's all I listen to. It's one of those things. It's not just for the young people. It's, all the guys too, like myself, that I think they're great, because you can be either entertained, you can learn something, right? You want to learn how to cook, you can, watch a show on cooking. So it's really a great thing. And, about a year ago, Phil and I, sat down and was like, what can we do to, kind of stir the juices in the local. And, this idea came up with doing a podcast. And, the goal with it is to, include all the trades, right? So it's just a phenomenal place to, raise your family is in the building trades. All the trades, my grandfather was a DC-9 painter. My father came out of the Navy, worked with, I forget what union he was with, but it was an electrical trade. And then went into the office with Con Ed. My great-grandfather was a painter. My cousin's a fireman, so, they're part of it. It's just this, you see how people can, live and support their family and have a home and be treated with respect. Yeah. And I can't think of a better place than, the building trades. And each and every trade that's out there, they're all awesome, right? They're all unique. They all are different. Some are, you want to come in and you want to work with your muscles, and some you want to check your muscles at the door and work with you. It's
work with your mind, or
there's something there for everybody. And when you look at all the trades, it's just I think they all flourish. Like in my town, on my block, I got 5 houses on my block. It's kind of like it's a cut through or whatever, and every single house on that block are tradespeople. Guy next to me is an HVAC. The guy over there is, I forget what he's with. Then my son's down the block. He's with the Elevator Constructors. Behind him is the operating engineers, and across the street from me is an electrician. And you look at all these homes, and
they're each operating with pride with what they do.
Beautiful homes, and the great thing too is everybody looks out for each other.
Right.
That guy's looking out for me. That I'll come home and the garbage was put out the night before, and there's my pail in my driveway because the brother across the street
moved it in for you.
It's the trades are just an awesome place, and people tend to gravitate to certain trades because of family, friends, whatever.
Right.
But I don't care. Close your eyes, throw your dart at the wall, pick a trade.
Where does it land?
And you're going to do well, because
it's funny you say that. My my grandfather, I watched as I was growing up. He was in the CWA 1180, and he raised a family of 6, being in a trade, and he had a great sense of pride about that. And it never pushed when I was getting out of high school to look, this is what you should do, because our family was leaning me towards higher education. It seemed like the right path for me at the time. And it was great. I learned a lot in school. However, getting into that job market, coming out of college, it's not an immediate placement. You have this, idea that you're taking on all this debt, you're taking student loans, going that path. And then in the end, you look back and these jobs look at you like, oh, great, you have your degree. Well, what about your experience? What do you mean, what about my experience? Where, as in the trades, you're getting the education along with the experience while being paid.
Right.
And instead of digging, 18 years old, we all rush off to college and dig a hole maybe $100,000, deep, versus you could have made that and then some in any trade. So I think it's a viable path to raising the bar for the middle class. You know, I like seeing that, and it's definitely been the truth for me. You know, I did that higher education path, and like I said, I learned a lot. It just
Yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit. Talk about current
events.
family.
Right.
You know, not the trades, not nothing. Just talk about William Cosmo's family, like where you're at. What's
Right. So, I mean, I travel in and out of the city every day. It's I live pretty far upstate, about 100 miles from the Hall.
Really? Where do you live?
Sullivan County.
Okay.
It's beautiful up there.
It is.
It's that's my peace. You know,
Yeah.
when at the end of the day, I can feel as I'm driving home, the less traffic lights I hit, the less traffic I hit. It's like, the day is unwinding.
Yeah, it's a little cleaner.
I'm feeling, yeah, you can breathe.
Right.
You don't really have to lock the door. If you forget, it's okay. I have two beautiful children, you know, 8-year-old little girl and a 13-year-old boy. He's testing me, but I think
That's their job.
I did it to my mother. So, you know, God bless her. And
Yeah.
the kids got me wound up some days, but he's ultimately they're great kids. And watching them take on little things, and you know, something happened actually recently with my son, and I'm leaving to go do a PM shift, you know, at work in the city, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, you're going to work today?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, I am." And I kind of explained to him, you know, what that meant for our family, and it was the first time he ever had really shown any interest at 13. You know, he's thinking about Minecraft and everything else.
Yeah.
So he asked me that, and I told him, you know, why I was going and what that meant in terms of, you know, finances and stuff like that. And he's like, "Yeah, I'd probably do that." I'm like, "Good job, buddy. I'll catch you later." And, you know, that was a big thing for me because we always ask ourselves, like, I'd love to see my kids do better than I did.
Right.
And I'm sure
that's your job.
That's my job, right? And I'm sure that was my parents' goal with me and my grandparents with them, et cetera. And to see him take that, you know, the possibility might be alive that one day, you know, I might be calling the Hall and finding out, you know, when's this next recruitment, or talking to Maddie even and saying, you know, what would this look like for him?
Right.
And I would be overjoyed if that was the case.
You know what's good too is that, you know, most young kids coming out of high school, when you ask them, you know, what they want to do with the rest of their life, it's kind of
Right.
like an unfair question.
It is.
How
It
are
is.
they supposed to
It's a
know,
stacked
right?
question. I had no clue.
Yeah, you got no clue because you haven't experienced life yet, right? So,
Right.
But some kids that they're at that age, some of them already working, maybe with
Right.
their dad. You know, we got members here that I know personally that, you know, 12, 13 years old was working with their father, and that's all they knew, work. And then
Right.
high school ended, and it's like, I'm going to continue to go to work. And
Right.
when those kids take that path, boy, they got it.
The jump start.
Oh my God.
It's
You know, when
crazy.
they come in, listen, not all kids coming out of high school are either mentally or physically ready for
Right.
a job like this, right? Some of them are just, they're still growing and maturing. And there are some kids that are physically and mentally a little, you know.
Yeah, not ready to
advanced.
take
And
on that.
It's not a knock on a kid that's not ready. There's no way I could have came into this.
I
trade
wasn't
at
ready. I'll be
18
honest
years
with
old.
you.
There's no way. But the ones that are, and they come into this trade, and you think about, you know, the benefits that they're accumulating, the money that they're going to make.
Right.
23, 24, 25 years old, they're looking at buying homes, and, you know, it's like,
Right on.
I can't believe it. And that's what these trades can do for these young kids. So, you know, you mentioned higher education. So coming out of high school, then you went into college.
Yeah, it was kind of it wasn't my initial choice. I you know, took the first year to kind of see what I was going to do, and I noticed a lot of, we'll call it unfair pressure from the hierarchies in my family that were like, you know, if you don't go to college, you're not going to make anything of yourself. I'm like, okay, you know, and what do I know? I'm an 18-year-old kid. I have no clue. So I got re-enrolled for school, and I had always felt a sense of, you know, wanted to give back to my community, and you know, I appreciated law enforcement, and I felt like that was a good path. So that's what I chased after, and it was a good experience. You know, I can't say it's for everyone, and I don't believe it was for me in the end. But I saw it through, got out, got my undergrad in criminal justice, and then I went for my master's within that 5-year period in sociology, And then coming out, I'm like, first step, let's take the civil service exams. Let's get the name out there. And I found a lot of what I was being offered when I would get the call back and go for the interview and all these things was, well, that's great that you have all of that. However, you're going to need 5 to 7 years for it to be relevant. And now I'm looking, through grants that I had gotten, some scholarships, some financial aid, taking the decision to move off campus and afford my own housing and work full time while I was in school. I still accumulated about $120K in student loan debt. And I'm staring at that. I'm 24, 25 years old. Like, how am I going to pull this off? Like what's going to happen? And I'm being offered, entry level jobs at, 38,000, 40,000 a year. And how's this going to work? Like that's not even going to pay for the loans, let alone, you got the car, you want to have, maybe buy a house, you got to feed yourself, all of these bills started becoming really real for me. And I'm like, I can't take a part-time job. That's a part-time job. I need something real. And in that time frame, I took everything I could. I think I was working 3 jobs. I was roofing, I was working at like a construction supply place, and then, on the side doing landscaping, picking up any little thing that I could. And I've always had a passion for automotive stuff. So I'm working on my car one day, and a good friend of mine, he pops by. He's got this shit all ripped apart. And, what are you doing here? And I start explaining whatever it was I was doing. He's like, man, I work on elevators, right? I'm like, yeah. How's that going? He's like, oh, it's going good. You should come to work with me. I'm like, oh, yeah? He's like, yeah, come tomorrow. And it's Sunday afternoon. I'm like, all right, it was just picking up into roofing season. I'm like, well, we'll see what the weather is. And he's like, no, trust me. Call your people, figure out what you got, come to work with me. So I go to work with my guy. He ended up being my rabbi, I guess is the terminology. And I saw an elevator for the first time from that
inside.
Angle, from inside. Not like the end user that walks in and hits the button,
Right.
express to the floor. So I see that and I'm just blown away. I'm fascinated by every little intricate piece that's working. They're such it's an amazing piece of equipment. We know a lot more about it now, but in that infant stage where I knew nothing and I just saw all these pieces working, and he knew his way around it, like all the bells and whistles. Like, how could you possibly know what's going on here? He's like, well, this is that. And he started, it's explained very minimal things to me at the beginning, first day. And, I'm blown away. I'm like, I got to figure this out. This is a new challenge for me, And so he's like, all right, we'll drop you off at the office. And so, the rest is history. I started there. Hey, I'd like to give notice to, the other people that were relying on me. And, the guy that was hiring me at the time was like, well, you either want the job or you don't. I was like, oh man. So I have to make a decision. And I found in life that the things that, if it pushes you, or I don't want to say scares you, but if you're cognizant of a change happening like that, you're probably on the right path.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So then I got into business and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's everything I could learn, let me get my hands on that. Let me figure this out. Let me do that. And I had started with, in the non-union sector. And,
Well, listen, normally, not to cut you off, but when somebody can just tell you, hey, just show up tomorrow and go to work.
Right.
That's going to be in the non-union sector.
Yes.
Right? 'Cause
Yeah.
in the union sector, we have what's the, funny thing called apprenticeship.
Right.
And, if we want to have an apprenticeship program, which is, what all the trades want to have, for a zillion reasons, the state has laws on how you can hire, which is a good thing.
It is.
It's how it was years ago. It's how I got hired. It just had to be an opening.
Right.
Right. But now there's things called recruitments and direct entry for, the veterans and all these phenomenal direct entry programs. But to be able to just show up and go to work. So now, you're in the non-union sector, and what happens?
So I'm learning the trade. It is these things like recruitment and apprenticeship. They were foreign terms to me at the time, but I'm going to work every day. I'm learning the equipment. I'm learning the job. They were very laxed on safety, and this was something that I didn't know about early on, but I started to notice it. I started to see it.
But you also think that you're in the elevator business,
Right.
and this is what the business is.
This is what we do.
This is
Right.
normal. This is
Yeah.
the business.
This is what it was set at, and that's a danger of this. You know, the non-union is they might not be pushing the safety like we do here, you know, at Local One. And for someone that's new in the business and doesn't know any better, that's a very dangerous thing.
Sure.
You know, that's why when they came out with licensing and like you're like, oh, this is kind of a pain. I'm like, is it though? Is it keeping you safe? Is it keeping your family safe? If they ride another elevator somewhere in the city, and you know that someone who is licensed and is going to operate safely is in there working, installing, and maintaining that equipment.
Right.
So, you know, not knowing much about it in the beginning, but you know, thankfully, you know, thank God I had my, you know, head screwed on straight, and I was like, I shouldn't do that. That's a bad idea. But it wasn't coming from the company per se. You know, it was coming from the guys. And, you know, there were other, you know, non-union guys that were, you know, they were leading you in the right direction.
But there was still a mad push
Yes.
to get the job done.
Absolutely.
And there's a mad push anywhere you work to
Right.
get the job done. But there's a proper way and a safe way to do it.
Right.
And then there's the improper and unsafe.
Right. And the goal, I feel like, of these non-union contractors is to keep that, you know, as fast as possible and as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
So if we don't have to buy harnesses for everyone, you know, it was one thing I dealt with there is we would trade harnesses around. You don't have your own stuff. And that's what I learned in the beginning, like, oh, I need the bag dropped off to me. Whereas here, everyone has their own bag. You have multiple bags if you need. And not having access to it, that's a disservice to everyone. You know, you save one life with a piece of safety equipment.
Sure.
It's all worth it.
And then it's all worth it.
And it needs to be part of the budget. Like you can't just say like, oh, it's not a line item on a budget. It's coming. It's not part of the end goal. It's not part of your profit. You can't think of it that way.
Right.
And it was very obvious to me after even, you know, 6 months in that was the case, and you had to fight for it. And that was the culture there, was you were fighting to work safely, but also being hounded that, well, I only wrote this job for, you know, 16 hours, so it needs to be done. It's a physical impossibility, but, you know, what are we going to do?
Right.
This is what the boss wants. So through that process, you know, I'm working non-union, and I get made up as a mechanic, and I'm, you know, building traction.
Let me stop you right there.
Go ahead.
So how long are you in this business before you get made a mechanic?
Between 2 and 3 years.
So between 2 and 3 years. Listen, we've heard horror stories where
6 months.
It's 6 months, it's
Yeah.
a year, and we just kind of like, oh my God.
Yeah. There was discussions of it, and I knew. So when I got in the business, I was doing M&R and repair work, and right about at the 2-year mark, I was brought into the office, and like, we have this maintenance route opened up. We just picked up these buildings, and we think it's a good fit for you. And I knew that, you know, in that company, for example, like, you know, the service guys didn't get vehicles. They didn't get tools. They didn't really have much. And you could see they were like rubbing 2 sticks together trying to fix elevators. I'm like, I don't think this is for me. I appreciate it. Like, I'll just wait for something else to open up. And, you know, thankfully I did that, because about, I'd say 6 months, 8 months later, like, oh, we have need for another repair mechanic. I'm like, this is what I know. This is what I've been doing for this, you know, 2.5, 3 years. I'll be better at this. So I took that job, and, you know, I'm building traction. I'm taking pride in my work. I'm trying my best to work safe, and I'm getting, you know, new apprentices along the way. And you see, you know, back to what you said before, these kids fresh out of high school that don't really know what they want. I saw that in some of the apprentices that I got. Like, what is this kid doing, showing up 10 o'clock every day, you know, dressed in Jordans, not ready to work? Like,
right.
That culture was there too, where they weren't forced to take it serious. Whereas, like, I feel like with most apprenticeship programs, like, it sets the bar for them. Like, you need to reach this level. There's expectations of you. You know, not only am I relying on you to keep me safe, but you're relying on me to keep you safe. So that wasn't there. But anyway, I'm going along doing work, and, you know, every once in a while I start, you know, bump into people talking about what I do, and I'm very proud of what I do. Like, I'm making a decent living at this point. You know, not what I'm doing now, But
at the time, you
at
thought
the
you were
time,
killing it.
that was the ceiling for me. That was as high as I had made it. So whether it was, 60, 70, 80,000 that year, I killed it,
Yeah.
where in retrospect, in reality, looking back, I'm like, man, did I have my priorities jacked?
Oh, yeah.
So, but I'd bump into people and they're like, oh, you're an elevator guy. You with Local One. What is this Local One? What's the story here? And it seemed to be, that was the reoccurring theme. Every conversation I had, every person I met, they'd bring up Local One, or what's the other one? Otis. They'd bring, oh, so you work for Otis Elevator? I'm like, no. But it seems to be one of the best known names. And I saw that along with Local One. I'm like, what is this, thing? So I start inquiring about this gold standard. It's the way I viewed it. Like that's where that's my trajectory. I need to get there. How do I figure this out? And so I take to social media, like most people my age.
Before you go to social media, you start looking on the internet. Did you bring it up within, the guys that you were working with?
I had asked a few guys. Yeah, it's fine. Looking back, there was guys I looked up to within the company that I'm like, he's who I would aspire to be here.
Right.
And there's guys like, well, I had spent some time working in this union, and then I found this. And the general theme amongst these guys, which I didn't notice until looking back, like when I was reflecting on these situations, was they always had a little bit of selfishness. And I don't think that's what being in a union's all about. It's not. It's, if I can do something to help you out today that brings us all up, that's what this is about. You give back a little bit. You do things like the Labor Day parade. That's such a feeling, marching up Fifth Avenue, like bringing all the trades up and just putting everybody up on that pedestal where they belong is such an empowering feeling. I remember my first year in, Brian Hauser, you got to make it to Labor Day parade. You're going to love this. And I get there, and boy, was he right. I loved that.
Awesome.
It's an amazing thing. So, that theme of these guys was, they always were like, well, this works for me. They, everyone has their story, whether it be, they're struggling to pay their bills, or, they made mistakes in their past, or they're getting, have a nasty divorce or something like that, where they always have a reason or something.
Might be too a sense of loyalty to, this guy,
Right.
this company that hired them and gave
True.
them.
Because they set that ceiling for them, like we were
Sure.
talking about just before, where my ceiling was that 80,000. That was the best I had ever done.
Right.
What year was that? 2017. That was the most money William Cosmo had ever made. So to me, that was providing, at that point in time, 2017, my daughter was born. I was looking at getting married, doing all that stuff, and I'm putting together a family. This is what I wanted. So he was providing that for me, that employer, by giving me that amount of money. So that loyalty that you speak of, that's real for all those men too.
Right.
That was provided for them, whether, that year they made $100K and they were able to take their family on vacation, and that gave them a sense of pride. So they have loyalty to the people that provided that for them. So that is a very real, thing to deal with out there, is those, I don't want to say they don't know any better, because they do. They know what's good for them and their family, but they don't know that there's other options, per se. I forget what the saying is, but like everything's red through rose-colored glasses. Like when you have those glasses on and you're looking at, well, I'm doing so good. Yeah, but are you really? Could you be doing better?
It is, though, it's a comfort level. Like, they're content, and I could make more, but I can get by in life with this.
I'm
And
good.
Sometimes it takes a lot of hard work or a leap of faith that, we're going to talk about in a minute, but to be able to climb that ladder a little bit.
Yeah, it's intimidating.
And listen, and some people,
It can be.
It can be intimidating. It can be my outside pressures that, and you're like, what, I can do this. I'm content. I'm comfortable. It's like one of those. It's great to be content. That's a wonderful thing to be.
Yes.
It's also like
Dangerous.
a curse word. It's dangerous
It's
because
dangerous.
it tends to water down, people that can achieve such great things.
Right.
And due to being content.
Yeah, waters down
sometimes
potential.
Kinda, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Why am I gonna bust my ass?
I'm
to do
good
that?
where I'm at.
I'm good where I'm at.
And truthfully, they might be at that
Right.
point in time, but they could be so much better.
Sure.
And so there was guys that told me, negative things. And there was guys who were like, well, good luck getting in there. Good luck doing that. And I'm like, okay, challenge accepted.
Why would that message be sent to you? Like, good luck. I mean, listen, it's a good message, but because it's not simple coming into the trades. All the trades. It's not just here. It's any of the trades. They're highly sought after jobs.
It's a coveted position.
And when these locals do these recruitments, it's a mad rush for these applications, right? So the message could be, good luck.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get in because it's a great thing. Or is it good luck, like for in a negative way?
It felt like it was a negative statement.
Yeah.
Like we had competing interests that were going to go against each other at that point in time. So, to kind of shed some light on that situation was I started to notice while I was there that there is a portion of these non-union shops, whether you call it a percentage, say, let's call it the 1%, the 1% of that employee base that is paid comparable. They make a decent wage. They might get their health insurance covered, as it's we're going to take care of this for you, just for you. Don't tell anyone else. And I inevitably got to that stage where I felt like I was in that 1% club. And my health insurance was getting taken care of. And I was making a, comparable wage. And there was always a cash deal on the side. So, like, I could see why they'd say, like, well, if you got everything you need here, good luck doing that because you're going to lose all this. And this isn't going to be here for you.
Right.
And so it's like you step to the edge of greatness and you're about to make that leap of faith. And someone's right there to say, hey, get back, slow down, good luck doing that.
Here's another $1.
You don't want to risk what you have here for the potential for something else. No. You want to be careful. So you got your family. We're a family here. We understand. And that was a big message along with, good luck with that. And I was young and naive and didn't know that some of the guys that I was asking this question to, were the Benedict Arnolds, if you would, of that space.
Right.
And say, oh, they were running right back home, to the boss and saying, watch that guy, he asked the wrong questions.
Yeah.
Which were the right questions, but in their eyes, maybe were the wrong questions. And, once everything got started, when, leaning towards, being organized and reaching out and stuff like that, I started to reflect a lot on why those things existed and why they needed to. Just the fact that they exist kind of proves the point of why we need to be here doing this. And the benefit of organizing, the benefit of unions, and the benefit of, a collective bargaining agreement. You see all those, individual factions, and they exist as the opposition to a collective bargaining agreement. And it's, I don't want to call it like the employers are out there bamboozling these guys, but in a way, it's calculated. They do it on purpose. There's, look, I'll set something up for you. I'll give you this, but I'll also give you $500 a week cash. Think about it. You don't got to pay taxes. Why are we even having that discussion? Right. But at the time when that's offered to you as a young man starting a family, you got a 3-year-old at home, you're like, I'd love to buy a home. I'd love to have my own house. And then you get offered something like that where it's like, this is great. I can make all this extra money and I could, a little bit more for me and my people. And, it's an oppressive tactic at the end of the day, unfortunately. But when it's happening to you, when you're standing there and it's being offered, if we had a conversation right now, I'm like, look, all you got to do is this, and instead of giving you a raise this way, I'll do it this way.
Right.
That sounds like a great deal at the time, and then later on when you're signing that mortgage document, and they're like, wait, I thought you said you make X. Now you got to prove that income. And you're like, that doesn't work. Right. It doesn't work that way. So in the end, I learned valuable lessons because of it. And I was able to share that experience with those younger apprentices in that company once organizing began, and they started to see it. Because those guys, as I was looking up to other guys in that company when I was younger and starting out, then there was a generation of new guys looking up to me, and they're like, I want to get like Will. How did that happen?
Right.
And then I'm preaching a different story of we should have a contract. We should have something here for us to ensure, I tell this story that the last apprentice that I had, which we ended up, through, the knowledge of it, he got signed up for the recruitment, during that organizing drive, and he ended up getting recruited and getting in, through that door, which I was forever grateful that, he paid attention to it. Like I said, that kid he was on his game, and it showed. But, I'm working with this kid every day, and I noticed he had an aptitude for the trade. He was good at it. He took it serious. He showed up on time. He was dressed for work. It was always, yes, sir, I'm going to do it. I'm taking care of it. And if I asked him to do something, it was considered done. And that's, it's important. And I didn't see that from everyone. And I saw that from this kid. And, with the guys on the job, the guys you work with, your apprentices, your foreman, everyone, you almost spend as much time with these guys that you do with your own family.
Sure you do.
And you get to know them. They are your family away from home. And so through talking with this kid, what's your story? What are you going to do with yourself? I know you got your girlfriend. What do you plan on getting married? You want to have kids? What do you want to do? He's like, well, right now I'm focusing on, I'm trying to get out of the Bronx. I want to get away from that. Like he grew up kind of, in a not so great neighborhood, let's just say. I got to get out of there first. He's like, and I'd love to get health insurance. And it just clicked for me. I'm like, you'd love to get health insurance? We're working on some of the most dangerous stuff that you could possibly ever imagine, and you don't have health insurance. And I was taking it for granted. Like I said, I was part of that 1% that was getting taken care of. And I realized I was being used as a soldier, if you will, to keep that oppressive thumb over the 99% of that company. Right. Because I would speak great things about, the guy in charge. Look what he's doing for me. You could have this too. You just got to make the right steps. And it's like, no, everyone could have this if we had a collective bargaining agreement. So that ignited a flame for me, seeing that this kid that I grew to, trust, love, I wanted to see him do good. And he was fighting to make, $17 an hour and get health insurance. I'm like, what am I doing? Like I have a fiduciary obligation to this man and all these other men to stand up right now. Like, and if I'm not going to be the voice, if I can't use my position in that 1% to speak and let it be heard by everyone, I couldn't live with myself. It became that. So that was ultimately, I think at that point in time, I had, through social media, reached out to a couple people that I knew that were just very active on LinkedIn. I always saw them tags for, IUEC or Local One Strong or all these things. And I'm like, okay. So, private DM somebody and say, what's the path to doing this? Like, what would be the right steps? And I ended up being put in touch with, the organizer, Brian Hauser at the time. And we briefly spoke on it. But in between speaking and having that little situation where my apprentice couldn't afford the insurance, I'm like, we got to do something. And
so just to stop you for a second, your apprentice is working, and he can't afford insurance. So he's working in this trade, and he's got no health care.
Correct. Yeah, couldn't afford it. I think at the time, the weekly premium was like $90 that he had to pay out of pocket, and
So that was what the employer was offering, or that's just what he could find?
That's what the employer was offering, which, again, at that time, my insurance was being covered, so I didn't look into it.
So you didn't pay the $90?
No, so whatever the family plan was, that was being paid for by the employer for me.
So the next question is, what level of health care were you getting? Like
not
deductible?
Oh, horrendous.
What doctors can you go to?
Nobody.
Right? So
Yeah.
what it is disaster insurance.
Yeah.
Right? Disaster insurance. Like I just broke my leg and
my fingers ripped off.
I can't go to urgent care.
I need to do something.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, that's disaster. That's not health care. That's disaster insurance.
Exactly. Yeah, it was.
But some guys will think, hey, he's paying my health care. He ain't paying health care.
Yeah, no, he's.
How about, let's talk about retirement benefits.
Zero.
Were there any retirement benefits?
Zero. So that was something that.
So people were expecting, well, I guess this is a great trade. I love the work, and I'm going to do this till I'm 75 years old.
Right. That, and I'll save along the way and I'll figure it out.
Hey,
and
good luck to that.
Yeah. Good luck with that should have been my response when that came up, because, you know, I mean, I don't think we talk about it enough with the younger generation, or maybe we do now. I certainly do now when I see these young kids coming in. I'm like, look, man, get on your 401k now.
Yeah.
You know, get those numbers up, because once you start compounding, and it's like a snowball, and you'll look back one day like, how did I get here? You know, and I see it a lot too, having, you know, got into trades at 25, that I know a couple of my buddies that I work with now that started at 18, and they're leaps and bounds ahead of me. That 6-7 years difference, that put them, you know, everyone always says, like, once you hit 100 grand, just watch, kid. It'll go. And it's true, because once you hit that marker in those retirement funds, it's holy smokes.
It's a monster that
it takes off on its own
life of its own.
Yeah, and we are so.
And I'll tell you, to your point, you know, when we do these outreach events, right, as the education, you know, people that are running the education, you know, whether it's Eat, Neat, whatever it is, we go on these outreach events, especially with a recruitment coming up, right? We're required by the state to do these outreach events, and it's, you know, for some it might be a drag. I love doing it and talking to, you know, these young people. And I have a very simple app in my phone for compounded interest. Okay. And I'll go into, okay, this is, and with very, very realistic numbers, like with not incorporating, because it gets more difficult, but not incorporating a yearly raise, not incorporating overtime, right? Just doing the bare minimum. Yes. And showing them.
This is basic.
This is basic, and showing them, if you come into this business at the age of 20 and you worked until, you know, let's say 60, whatever, 40 years, or even we'll stop it at 57, 58 at full retirement, and show them not putting the max away.
Right. Just the
not
minimum.
Incorporating raises, keeping, we go up, we have a raise in our annuity every year, as all great trades do.
Right.
But not even the same, we're going to freeze everything today. No more raises.
Right.
And no overtime. And to show them that they're going to wind up with multi-million-dollar accounts.
Exactly.
So now double it, if not more, because of overtime,
the raises, the percentages. Yeah. Good luck not working overtime.
Eyes just open, like it's a concept that they don't even understand. And then you talk about, you could do the same thing for yourself in 401k and have double. You know, you're gonna retire with $6-7 million in the bank when you retire. It's amazing, right? So when you think about guys that were in your shoes, that were the 1%ers that were getting taken care of with this Fugazi healthcare, and no retirement benefits, and they're paying you probably close to what local one guys are making. Are you really getting taken care of?
No,
you're not.
You're not.
You're being exploited. Is what
exactly, and it takes a lot to look in on yourself and say, and to realize that you fell for it. You know, I think that's another aspect of that is no one wants to admit that they got taken advantage of. Right. You know, it makes it, oh, maybe I'm not as strong as a man because I let this happen to me. And, you know, I need to be grateful for what I have. There's that whole thing, but, you know, you are being taken advantage of, and to realize that and recognize it is, you know, that can be a very emotional process. Like, I remember the roller coaster of realizing that, and then we'd have a great day. It'd feel like we were empowered, and a lot of people were falling for it. And then, you know, you'd go into the office, you know, company meeting. We're going to do X, Y, and Z if this happens. All negative things, you know, lock the doors or burn the place to the ground or whatever. And, like, oh, man, like, if this doesn't go well, you know, look at all these guys. There's 100 plus, 150 guys here that, you know,
could be out of work.
You know, like this has real world implications for a lot of people, and they're scared. They're scared. And to say that I wasn't would be a lie. I was like, man, I don't think these guys would be where they're at if they were lying. You know, and it took a lot of rationalization on my behalf, but I inevitably, you know, I had belief in their system and I trusted them, and, you know, I think I'm living testament to it now. That thank God I did, because whatever they told me, they gave me those numbers like you just said. This is the basic.
Right.
This is if you do 40 hours. If you make minimum rate, if you all those basic things that you don't get any raises, this is what you're making. And now, just even in the past 4 years, like, the rates have gone up to here. The annuity rate's gone up to here. Working 40 hours a week doesn't happen.
That's probably the rarity is a 40-hour week.
It is very rare.
Right.
You have to give some of those shifts away. I'm calling guys all the time like, look, man, I've been working 9 days straight.
Right.
I'd like a Saturday to myself. You want to take this shift for me? And it's great to have access to that, because it's like, I'm going on a vacation in a couple weeks. And in the past, I always had a plan for these trips and squirrel a little bit away.
Right.
I've smacked some overtime this week, next week, and the week after. I'll take that week off. I won't even feel it. I'll enjoy myself. I'll treat my family like royalty. And that's an amazing pride that I can have in doing that. And you turn that overtime faucet on, and it's like money on tap. So good luck not working overtime. It's there, and it's there for eager people. So when they gave me those bare minimum numbers, that was enough to entice me. And then now I'm seeing it in real time where it's like, they were right. They were really right.
So I'm sure when that organizing drive was going on, they were telling you, right? And they probably brought people in to talk to you guys that don't believe the hype. Don't listen to those
They're
guys.
liars.
They just want your money. They want
the dues money.
The dues money. Oh my God, the dues money.
It's crazy. I automatically pay my dues every, just set the app up, bam, 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 it goes. And you end up being ahead when you do that. And you look at it, you're like, oh, I'm getting my card for the fourth quarter, and that was a very big thing. It's funny you say that. You got to pay these to be part of this organization. I'm like, okay, so let's break this down. Right now, you're paying for your Fugazi health insurance for just a single person, $90 a week. You could pay $60 a week to be part of the IUEC and pay your dues. And in return, you're part of a collective bargaining agreement. It's giving you better health insurance, a pension, and your annuity fund, and a better wage, and an entire list of rules that are designed to protect you from being taken advantage of.
Right.
So you're going to save money and live better? I don't see where that was going, but...
Yeah, you were paying more money just for your weekly health.
Right,
than
exactly.
what the dues was. So even if it was just that...
Right. Even if it was just
I'm going to pay
healthcare.
less money in dues, but now I don't have to pay the $90. I just have, a $300 or $600 deductible.
Right.
Which is mind-boggling. Even when you talk to very successful people, and we all do.
Yeah.
Very successful people in our lives coming from, white collar, whether they're doctors and they're lawyers and whatever. And when you talk about the benefits that the trades get,
it blows them away.
They look at you like, what are you talking about? Like,
They think you're lying.
They think you're lying.
And I could see why everyone kind of fell for that facade of they're feeding you lies. They're feeding you lies, because when you look back at it, when you see it in retrospect, like my dentist a couple months ago, I'm laying there in a chair and, what do you do? And so I explained to her, I'm an elevator worker, I do X, Y, and Z, and this, that, and the other thing. She's like, do you mind me asking what you make? And so I told her, and she about fell out of her seat. Are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you have great insurance, by the way, William.
Well, that's the thing. Well, that's what prompts that question.
Right.
When you go to the doctor,
they see it.
I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And you plunk that card down, and they run the insurance, and the first thing they want to start talking about are deductibles and all this other stuff, and then they stop, and now they say, hold on, sir, they walk in the back, and the red carpet comes out, and they roll out the red carpet.
And the stress that takes off of you and I, or any of our members when they're using their insurance, I can remember, hurt myself at home, whatever. I cut my finger open, oh, what is this gonna run me? Like, what's this bill gonna be? Whereas, with having 2 kids and my wife and going to regular appointments, the deductible's met by like March.
Sure it is, especially with,
and then you
got 2 young kids, right?
Right.
It takes very little time to achieve that. But the peace of mind that you can go to the doctor because something's not right.
Yeah.
Without worrying about that, it's going to put you in a hole.
Right. And it's going to bankrupt you for life. Your whole life's going to change.
You could take care of yourself.
You can focus on what's important, your health.
Right. Your kid's got the sniffles where you're like, hey, rub some dirt on it, but maybe that kid's got strep, or maybe that kid's got something that needs to be taken care of.
Right.
And these poor guys can't do it. They can't afford to to
Right.
go to an urgent care.
Right.
Never mind having a, family doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Someone that knows your history or things like that.
That peace of mind alone is worth
more than the dues.
It is.
It is. It's worth
It is.
millions.
And listen, I'm not going to turn around and say that, we pay a lot of money for that.
Right.
Right? Through our, total package, all the trades, it comes out of that total package.
Right.
And it's a lot. It's a lot. But you know what? This is how we want it to go. We want to be able to walk into a doctor's office without having, these thousands of dollars in deductibles and
Right.
I'm going to pay for it. It's all right.
Yeah.
but it's the peace of mind to be able to have your family go to the doctor and you get problems that you can go. And it's that alone, the health care. We could talk about the retirement benefits till, for a couple of weeks. How great that is. And the peace of mind as you get older, right? I'm 61, so I'm staring at it. Listen, I can go tomorrow if I wanted to.
Right.
I'm not going to skip a beat.
Right.
I got a couple of years. I like to, continue to go, and that. Those accounts.
You got more fight in you.
It's doing something like this, and all the new things that we got coming with education, which is a constant lighting of a fire, for some of us.
It is. When you have a passion for it, like we had spoke the other day about bringing light to the trades through, local high schools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Putting it out there, and that's enough. That could keep you going for years.
Sure.
It's getting the word out, because this wasn't something that was ever really discussed with me, like through a high school guidance counselor or anything like that. Their access to the trades, it was always, the gymnasium was riddled with colleges that day that all wanted a piece of your time, and I can't recall if there even was a trade there, and if there was, they might have been hidden to the side.
Yep.
Like, this is not as good, and I don't want to sound biased. I speak with my old college buddies, and Will, wow, you're doing great. I'm like, yeah, man, this is my thing now. Like, I'm not looking back. I'm not, you guys are having fun doing what you're doing. I'm having a great time. I'm making a great living. I'm providing for my family. I have all these benefits. I'm looking forward to what the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years is going to bring. With advancements in technology, I know it's going to bring challenges. However, I think the leadership here at Local 1 is doing what they need to do to keep us the most relevant as we can be, through whether it be education, training, safety, and things like this podcast. This is the future. This is what.
But I'll tell you what, it's not just the leadership here at this local. It's the leadership. You start climbing that ladder.
Right.
It's the leadership at the building trades in the city, right? The great Gary LeBrock, and his what he's got going on. So it's a collective, and then you keep climbing that ladder, and then from an international level with the IBC throughout all our great locals around the country. It's like you got this great group of people joining forces.
Right.
And
it's like gravity.
It is.
They're pulling, they're sucking everything in.
It creates all the great things that we have in the city. But just getting back to this organizing drive. So obviously, we're going to fast forward a little bit, and the organizing drive is unsuccessful.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Ultimately,
The goal is for any organizer out there is to secure that big shot.
that 50% plus one vote was the goal.
Right. That was the goal.
That was the goal.
And the goal wasn't met.
No,
so
it
let me
wasn't.
So let me ask you a question. Was that a failed organizing drive?
In my opinion, no, it wasn't.
Absolutely not.
It,
right?
if I'm speaking from a selfish perspective, for myself and the people I cared about, ultimately I was fired because of that organizing drive, which the legality of that is not here nor there. And I, pursued an option to be organized in and get into a shop, here at Local 1. And, looking back, it's irreparably changed my life. But for the guys that stayed, for the guys that voted no or voted yes and no one knew, because most of the guys that voted yes, they got, one way or another, whether their job got, was obsolete, or we lost that contract, so we're going to lay you off, or we're going to take your work van. You're going to need to provide your personal vehicle and carry, 5,000 pounds worth of tools to and from your job. And, I took, my tools out today, so I just stay home, because because you're beating your personal vehicle now because they took your van away as a retribution for your actions in organizing or whatever it may be. You know, there are people that did suffer from it. It brought, you know, questions about safety. Guys took it a little bit more serious because during that, the organizers were asking us about our safety equipment, you know, offering us safety equipment if we needed it. You know, explaining what these benefits were, and, you know, to my understanding, better benefits were, you know, offered. You know, a wage increase was like, you know, I think promises were made behind closed doors that if the outcome is, you know, successful in their eyes or unsuccessful, however you want to word it, you know, I'll give you guys yearly raises. Everyone will get this. Everyone will get something.
What a novel concept.
Right.
Daily
Yeah.
raise.
Hey, imagine that. So it inevitably, it brought the floor up for them,
Yeah.
which raises us all up in the end. You know, if you, you know, it lessens that gap between that union and non-union bid, or, you know, if those guys even all got safety bags because of it,
Right.
you know, that changed things, that rewrote that culture that I got brought into that was negative. It was bad. It was detrimental. It was a ticking time bomb, you know, and I knew guys at that company that got hurt, you know, while there was no safety policy. And it's changed their lives. You know, I think about them, you know, anytime I'm doing something, you know, I think back like, oh, remember what happened to so-and-so. And you know, it's hard to remember those things and then look back and, you know, think about what we have now and, you know, the safety policies around here and what, you know, what we hold the employer to or what we hold ourselves to and hold each other to have that culture, you know, be brought over there through that organizing drive. That's beneficial. That's beneficial to those workers. That's beneficial to the entire industry. It's beneficial to the end user because, you know, now you have guys that they're spending a little more time focusing on it. And in the end, they're going to work safer. They're going to put in a safer product. They're not going to cut corners as much. And, you know, they're, like I said, it raised the floor for them. It brought it up a little bit higher. And it had positive benefits for the people that stayed and the people that left.
Right. So you look at air quotes, a failed organizing attempt.
Yeah.
Had nothing but these small victories.
Yeah.
Right. And with the touchdown, maybe we kicked the field goal, but
Right.
being able to raise the floor at a
Yeah.
union shop,
There's
being able
points on
to
the board.
provide some guys with retirement benefits, being able to then organize guys like yourself.
Right.
To me, that's a great victory.
It was, in my opinion, it was. You know, I would have, you know, of course, are you upset? It would have been great if it went the other way.
Sure.
But it was great this way as well. You know, it taught those guys a lesson. It gave us the opportunity in the end to say, remember all those lies that were being put out there? How this was all false? You know, I still know some of those folks.
Right.
And they still look at me, whether they follow me on Facebook or something. It's obvious what I'm doing within my family
Right.
to them. They can see that. They can see that I wasn't being lied to. You know, so in the end, those lasting impacts, they're still speaking for themselves. You know, it grows exponentially. So, you know, that little bit of good that was done has turned into a lot of good. Those, like you said, points on the board. We kicked the field goal, but in the end, you know, we can win that game.
With the field goal.
Right, with that field
No
goal.
problem.
That's, you know,
Yeah.
like history's been decided by 1 point
Sure.
plenty of times. So,
Absolutely.
and
you also look back on the hard work of the organizers.
Yeah.
Like those guys, to me, are the unsung heroes in
Oh, my
these
goodness.
trades because they're doing a lot of this work behind the scenes. You don't see
Right.
it. Right. We could be, you know, with education or whether it's a business agent or the date, whatever the role is, a lot of what we do is there for the eye to see.
yeah.
And the organizers, it's all behind the scenes. We don't see what they're doing on a daily basis. That, you know, there's just
Their phone's ringing at 11
Oh, my
o'clock at
God.
night.
You know, and to not be successful that they didn't organize the shop. You know, it's got to wear on you after a while. You know, it takes a special kind of person to be able to,
Yeah. A
you know,
degree
to do
of-
that and do that. And the ones that are successful and continue to do it. You think about great salesmen, right? Great salesmen will tell you, yeah, I don't care about somebody telling me no because I need 50 no's to get to yes. So
Yeah.
bring on the no's,
Right.
and I'll
Keep rolling with them.
ultimately I'll get the yes. And
Yeah.
that person that has that mentality becomes a great salesman. And the same thing with the organizers. Like Brian here is a bulldog, right? That guy's
Yeah.
just going to continue to go. Mike Halpin years ago was the same way.
Same
He
way.
was a great organizer. You look at some of these guys around the city that are organizers for these other trades, and they're just, you look at these guys like, wow, man, you got a motor that
Yeah.
just doesn't stop. And then you really think about our IUEC, the passion for organizing that our leaders have, right? And it's a
Right.
trickle-down effect to all the trades that we have throughout the city, right? If organizing wasn't important to us on a national level with our, leaders at the IUEC, then it probably wouldn't be that important to the locals around the country that really
Right.
need that organizing.
Yeah, that
right?
starts from the top.
But because it's so important from the top, it trickles down. They provide support to all our locals, and it becomes this thing that we're gonna do. And
Right.
if you're not organizing, then you're gonna die.
Right.
You are.
It keeps us very relevant. I feel, just if you look at the stats of who's going to be retiring now, soon, we got to, feels like that entire generation of baby boomers is
Yeah.
moving out and filling their shoes is a challenge I feel like all trades are going to see.
They're seeing it.
Yeah, it's happening now.
It's happening now. It's happening here. And all you have to do is look back those 35 years and say, well, what was happening then? Well, guess what? It was a boom.
Right.
And all these people got hired, and now it's all these people at my age that came in the, I came in '87, but the mid-'80s when things were really cranking. And,
Right.
and you look back, I came up with Armor Elevator was just here in New York, but they were a manufacturer.
Right.
They had more construction teams when I get hired. They had so many, and it's mind-boggling how many. How many construction teams? And that's when everything was getting
What's
built,
up?
right? So now, those guys that were hired back then, that's like me, where
Yeah.
we're starting to retire, and now where is the replacement?
Yeah. In those organizing drives in the future, like if there's anyone out there that's listening to us today, or listens to this in the future and they're in those similar scenarios, fight that fight, put the word out, say the things that are happening to you, get it out there, file that unfair labor practice, speak up for what you know is right. If you feel like there's some, if your moral compass is telling you that you're doing the right thing, you're probably doing the right thing. If it's scary, if it's taking a lot out of you, you're probably doing the right thing. You're on the right path, and it feels like you're constantly, you're clawing to get up that hill, and then there's someone there kind of kicking you down. You're on the right road. People let you steam downhill towards your demise all the time because it's for their benefit. So, in that organizing drive, with all those guys that were there to push me down, if you're fighting in that positive direction, there's going to be opposition, and don't be afraid of it. It's keep your eyes focused on the end goal, on the prize, but that's what I did, and that's what but people benefited from it. I've seen it happen. I've seen a lot of those guys. Their families have exploded, and they're in a good way. Like they're all these guys that ended up being organized out of that. They bought houses. They've moved out of the city. Like that apprentice that I had that couldn't get that raise. He moved out of the city, and he recently got married. He's thinking about having his first kid and all these things. I'm like, this is amazing, man. He's about to getting into his 4th year of school now, and he's focused on that. That his annual increase that's coming. He's like, I can't wait. And I'm like, good for you, man. I have all the love for that kid. Yeah. And he's a man now. I call him a kid because he's a little younger than me, but he's that next generation. And to see that there's guys like him and more within our school and our education program, like I feel like, the older gentleman here that might be looking at the door in a few years, you're in good hands, because of those programs.
I'm one of those guys.
Right.
I know I'm in good hands. I see the young people coming in, and I look at them, and there's so much. They're different than when I came.
Right.
The world is different. Society
It
is
is.
different, right? And I hear some of the criticisms. Oh, the young guys today, they're just different.
Right.
You know what they are? They're smarter. I'll tell you right now, they're smarter. Like my kid's in the business. He's infinitely more smart than I was
Right.
when I was his age. And some of these young guys because, the jobs now are so technical.
Right.
That's where they're smarter.
Yeah.
Being able to...
The industry has demanded it.
Sure
You
it
know,
is.
and we've come, through our education program and having good leaders and good educators here that have taken it seriously, have, whatever guys like your son have brought to the table, with their knowledge, they're able to build that. They're able to take that. If you have if you have a good product to start with and you can, add things to it through, training programs that maybe weren't offered 35 years ago, or education programs that have only gotten better over the past 35 years from guys like yourself that have worked, that was your whole thing for a minute, was building the education program here. And it shows in the guys that are out there in the field that, they've bumped into teachers that, maybe showed them that one thing that you or I didn't get to learn. Makes them better, makes them smarter. And the equipment today is getting increased, with the things we're offering the end user, we have to become relevant in that. We have to know how those things are going to work and become the experts of it, because in the end, that's what we are. We are the experts within this field inside New York. Like I said before, I viewed it as the gold standard in New York when I was non-union. I'm like, how do I get there? How do I do that? And, now being on the inside looking out, okay, this is what we are, but we need to keep that propped up. We need to keep building that. And, through the support of other trades and, our leadership here and our own membership, to support guys like our organizers, giving support to them, giving support to guys like Brendan that are opening that door for the very real things that we deal with. Because when you have those fears, like during organizing, I'm like, if this doesn't work, like, what am I doing to my family? What is going to happen? And that was a very big fear of mine. Not saying I had any really negative thoughts, but like I could see how that could lead down that road, and having someone that you could reach out to, like Brendan, or, I see that happening to someone else and I reach out, I'm like, hey, you probably should call this guy. And he's helped a few guys that I know, and that's just what I know. Right. And I know he's helped more than that.
Sure.
And just to have access to that's amazing to me. It's the work that he does is, we need it. We need it, and to have it.
Unfortunately, we need it, but
right,
we do.
yeah.
And we're grateful here to have somebody like that,
right?
That's willing to, open up, and devote his time and help guys out. If he helps one person, then
it's all worth it.
It's all worth it.
Yeah, I've heard you say it before. The cost of one life.
It is.
You can't put a price tag on it.
You can't put a price tag on it. So listen. Let's just quickly fast forward. You get organized in.
Right.
Just what's like that first week like? You got here and the stresses of I'm going to get fired, or you got fired, and what am I going to do? And I got kids, and now you get here, you're organized in. Right.
What did that feel like? It felt surreal.
Yeah.
Once it happened and I got placed, like, I chose to go with an independent shop, out the gate, took a couple interviews, went there, and it was good. It was good. I ultimately, switched to one of the Four Sisters, made the jump, and I'm now, happily at Kone. That's a good environment. They really, I feel like we've done a lot with them from local one to interface with the employer to, talk safety, protect the work, have the right things out there. But it was initially, taking on, it didn't feel real once I got in there. I was like, this is, no. I'm
going to wake up and...
Yeah, this is all going to be over. It's a bad, it's a good, bad dream or whatever. It's all going to explode in my face. And then it wasn't. And then, I get that first annuity statement. I'm like, whoa, what happened here? Because you forget about it. When having not had it, it was, I'm just going to work every day like everybody else. I'm focused on, we got, we're having family over on Saturday. You're focused on that, or you're focused on the next thing. I'm putting a deck on the house, or, life gets in the way of all these things, and it just starts going. And then something like that statement comes in, and you're like, oh, wow, I made the right choice.
Yeah.
Or the first time you need to use the insurance, and you go in, and like you said, they roll that red carpet out, and it's like, well, this is different. This is new, like I've never felt this before. Those stresses slowly, they didn't immediately melt away. I'll be honest with you. I had an expectation of what the world was at that point in time, and slowly but surely, like you hit the insurance, you go to use it, that happens. You're like, okay, that was good. And then you get that annuity statement. You're like, oh, wow. Even if I just, like we said, bare minimum, don't consider the compounding interest. Even if I just saved this over the next 25 years, you do the math real quick on your phone, whatever, I would be good. Yeah. So that slowly but surely, those little stresses you have in life start to, they just vanish. They melt away like ice in the spring thaw. And it's, maybe 6 months to a year in, you're like, okay, this is great. And then I felt this like need to just, I have to help lift this up. I have to do something. So get involved. And like, I try to make every meeting that I can come to the union meetings. It's such an empowering feeling to be a part of the membership like that. All the things that happen. And then, like I said before, the Labor Day parade, getting involved in my very first one, which was, say, about 9 months after I was hired. And I go and we're all marching up Fifth Avenue. I'm like, this is something. I had my daughter. There's a picture that I think Brian Hauser took, and he sent it to me. And it's me marching up, and I got the orange shirt on, and my daughter's on my shoulders, and I'm carrying her up Fifth Avenue. And I look back at that as like the proudest moment of my life. It was amazing. So like, slowly you give back to the organization. I joined the picnic committee, and it continues to empower you. Like, being asked to come down here and talk with you guys, I'm like, really? Am I that guy? Should I do that? I felt kind of like, no, that's for everybody else. That's not for me. But in the end, sharing my story to the membership or the other trades or the potential non-union worker that might hear this, like, what's that about? The guy that was in my shoes 10 years ago, not now. That I owe that to this organization. I owe that to the organizing guys that helped me out, to tell my story and put this out there for people to hear. And I'm so grateful for you guys even thinking of this idea, because it gives me that platform to have my piece, and gives everyone else that platform to say their thing. And if that reaches 1,000, 1 million, whatever, however far this goes, it's a part of history now. Yeah. It's out there, and people can learn from my experiences. And look, man, if anyone ever had a question, I hope they can reach out, get my phone number, ask me what happened, because it was an emotional roller coaster for a minute. But in the end, when we finally, came into the gate, and I'm here 6 months, a year, now going on 4 years, I'm like, wow, well, it's so powerful. To be here today is surreal. Like, Brian said something to me recently. I went with him up to Albany for a little trade rally type thing, and he's like, I can't even believe you're standing here with me right now. Right. And I'm like, yeah, it's nuts, man. I didn't think, when I had met you, I think the first time we met was at a Dunkin' Donuts. He came to one of my jobs. I was working somewhere, and he's like, where's your hard hat? Where's this? Where's that? He was picking. He was trying to figure out where I sat on that, where I felt, who I was. And to go from that meeting to, I'm going to take the day. Let's go support the building trades up there that are dealing with their, offsite fabrication thing. This is a good thing. Let me give back a little bit. Maybe me just being there, and then I'll get a story out about something, or I'll talk to one guy that we're fighting the right fight in the right direction. It's worth it, It was it was a gorgeous day, but being up there with him, and we're standing there at the end of everything, he's like, it's crazy that you're here right now. And I'm like, I know, it's nuts. So yeah. It still has those moments where it doesn't feel real, like I'm going to wake up from that dream, because, it really is, it's changed my life, exponentially. I can't.
Listen, it changed your life, but we talk about generational wealth.
Right.
And not generational wealth in, like, you see these athletes sign these, $100 million contracts, and it's generations of getting paid.
Yeah.
When you talk about generational wealth, about, your kids, and, maybe one of your kids comes into this industry, and then it trickles down to
right.
His kid gets into this industry. You see it all the time here, third
Yeah.
generation, fourth generation.
I love talking to those guys.
Tradespeople, and that's generational wealth. And,
Right.
As a parent, you said it before, one of our jobs is, keeping everybody safe and providing for our families is our job is to make sure our kids do just
A little bit better than us.
A little bit better than us.
A little bit more.
And if that continues over time, wow, think of how awesome,
Right.
your grandkids or great grandkids are going to be if that
Yeah.
continues. And that's being part of an organization like that creates that generational wealth. That doesn't mean that your kid has to be here or your grandson. That's not what it means. But how you're going to be able to care for your
Right.
children and be able to steer them in a place and raise them in a way that now they're going to do for their kids.
When those stresses that exist in normal life melt away and you're able to focus on other things with your
Sure.
children, it opens those doors,
It does.
right? And that generational wealth could be, maybe my son wants to go to college. Maybe my daughter wants to, go to college. Or maybe they want to take up a different trade. To give them the knowledge that I've learned can build that generational wealth, can build that. I see it now with a couple of guys that I work with that are, they're able to work just a little bit more and pay for their kids' school. And that's such an amazing thing, having taken on, like I'm still paying my student loans off now, almost there. Maybe another 2 more years, I'll have that out of the way.
Yeah.
But, you're setting that child up, that, your son or your daughter or whatever, you're setting them up that much better. And you're like, look, I was focused on the money while I was there, when I was in college. I knew what I was digging. And every year I felt that weight pushing on me a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And to take that out of the equation, whether they're seeking a trade or higher education or anything like that, you take that out of the equation for your kids, they can focus on what's really important. They can focus on, honing in their skills in whatever they're doing. They can focus on, character development, understanding, because there's a lot of times in life where you hit a crossroads and you're like, well, financially I kind of got to go this way, but morally I'd like to go that way. And if you pull the plug on the finances in that for your child, that is generational wealth, in my opinion. That means you've succeeded. And I feel like I'll fully be able to do that for my kids. And hopefully because of that, they can pass that torch and hand that down, and it'll continue and build. And we're creating our legacy here. So it's an amazing thing.
We'll start to wrap this up, but give me a message. What's Willie's message to 2 different people? The people that are out there working non-union, that are just trying to put food on their table, right? That might be buying the hype. Hey,
Right.
don't go, sign up or try and get organized or join the elevator constructors or the iron workers or the sheet metal workers. Forget them. They're all a bunch of, they're
Right.
just trying to take advantage of you. And the message to maybe that kid that doesn't really know what he wants to do.
To the kid that doesn't know what he wants to do, to the young William Cosmo that doesn't know what's going on out there, open all the doors.
Yeah.
Every door that comes your way, open it up, have a full good look at what's happening. If you get an opportunity like I got to get into this business, the second I opened that door, I fell right in. I loved it. I have a true passion for what I do, which is helpful. You got to like your job, but open every door that comes your way to that, to the young kid that doesn't know what they want. And don't be forced to just take a path because it's what other people want for you.
Right.
I feel like that's the choices that I made. My family pushed me towards college. So I was like, I got to make them happy. That's the wrong move.
You said earlier that your grandfather was in the trades.
Right.
And he kind of kept his lips shut.
I think that's just the family dynamic. So within the Cosmo household, there's not a lot of men. My father was out of the picture. So it was like me, my grandfather, and my one uncle. Everyone else are the women of the family. And when they get to talking, good luck. So when, knowing that about my grandfather, I knew that was there, and I never really dug into that. So like I said, open those doors. He had a wealth of knowledge for me, which I ended up being able to explore later in life. Once I understood that, I got to get over to I got to talk to Grandpa. I mean, he lived such an amazing life. He lived to 99 years old. He was always griping about getting his letter from the president. And unfortunately for him, he never got it. But you know,
So was he alive when you got into the trades?
he was.
So
And
how was it then? I mean, he must have
the
been.
pride on that man, you know, when I told him what I was doing, and he was alive when I got organized, and I'm with Local One, and I started telling him, you know, kind of bragging a little bit, like
Right.
this, like this. He's like, William, he's like, you're gonna do great. He's like, this is, you know, and he pointed out to me, he's like, look at this house, look at all your aunts and uncles. You know, I had 6 kids. Your grandmother barely had to work. You know, she worked a little bit here and there, but I was able to bring this all up with working in my trade. And he had a great sense of pride about that. And that meant the world to me to hear that from him, you know, in the end, because all I wanted to do was make my family happy. Like that's the goal of most kids. I want my mom and dad to be proud. I want my grandparents to be proud. And, you know, I can get very fearful of what that brings out in people is when you're just seeking pride and recognition from your family members, you might take the wrong path. And that's okay. You know, look, I feel like I took multiple paths and I landed where I belong.
Yeah, but you know what? The path you took was the path you had to take.
Yeah.
Like, that put you on, and some people will look back and say, oh, I shouldn't have did this, I shouldn't have did that. You're here today.
Yep.
And every step that you took
Led to that.
Had to be, it led to that. If you change one thing, it changes everything.
Right. Yeah.
It changes everything, right? I met, you know, the night I met my wife. I don't go to that place. I go somewhere else.
Exactly.
My life has changed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the steps that you made going to college and making this choice and that choice, and you might look back and say, wow, that was a mistake. I don't believe it. I don't believe they're mistakes. They're just these stepping stones
Right.
to take you where you ultimately wound up, and change one of those stepping stones.
Right.
It changes everything. Right?
It does.
That's the path.
It is.
That was your process.
Yeah. And to you know,
And it's all good.
segue that into a message to, you know, the non-union worker that's being, you know, exploited or told all these things. Don't believe everything you hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of what we make is public information. You know, talk to, you know, whatever trade you're in with. Talk to those guys that are in that local. You know, when you see them, when you bump into them, you know, don't view them as the enemy. You know, view them as, you know, not exactly your coworker, but, you know, you're in the same field. You do the same thing every day.
Right.
You share a lot more than you would imagine.
You think you do. Yeah.
And they have no benefit to lie to you. You know, all those things where you're being lied to, you're being lied to. Ask yourself, how do they benefit from bullshitting me? How do they benefit from that? Because they don't. You know, they're telling you the God's honest truth, and they're even telling you the bare minimum of what you can do, of what you can accomplish.
Because if they told you what the ceiling was,
You wouldn't believe
then
it.
you'd all be sitting there. These guys are throwing me a line of shit. That's
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
they gotta water it down a little bit to make it believable. That's how great
It can be.
working in a union trade in this city
It's true.
is.
So don't fall for it. That's
Right.
my message is, you know, if your moral compass is directing you towards talking to someone, if your phone's ringing and you got questions, ask the questions, believe the responses, because it's real. You know, it's simple.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it wasn't at the time, you know, but if you break it down to simplicity, you know, you take all the facts that you have when you're, say, you know, someone that's involved in an organizing drive, and you take all the facts that you have, question everything. Why would they say this to me? What benefit do those unions have of telling me lies? They're asking me to be a part of it. I'm going to know if they're lying or not. Like if I tell you a lie today and I bring that to you, and you're likely to look into it, or you're likely to mention my statement to someone else, that's going to jam me up.
Right.
So why lie, right? And why would these people lie? They're not getting paid whether you get organized or not. You know what I mean? Like they don't make more money. It doesn't benefit them from lying to you.
Right.
Versus if you ask that question on the flip side, does it benefit the non-union employer if you get organized? And it doesn't.
Right.
It reaches deeper into their pocket to make you whole, like it should be. So question that is I think the most powerful thing I can say is ask those questions. And what's always good, you know, the power of organized labor, the power of a group. Those non-union shops divide people. That's their goal. Is they, this person against that person, against that person, against that person. Whereas the union raises everyone up together.
Sure.
We all work together for the membership, for the bettership of all of us combined, and that's powerful. So once you see that, it's pretty obvious, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's awesome, bro. Listen, we'll wrap this up. You just mentioned something before, and in our prior conversation about going back to your high school and giving back. I told you a story. I go to my high school, and I participate in that. If you want to do something like that, I'd love to. Collaborate.
It's a goal of mine. I look forward to.
I'd love to collaborate with you and do that. I really enjoy going to, these schools and talking to these young kids and really talking to the educators too there, right? Talking to the principals and the guidance counselors and the teachers and, and try and, set things up so that the trades can come in and have
establish that pathway,
a successful event, rather than, you have 100 schools at an outreach event, you throw a couple trades in there, and it usually doesn't work out that well. Right. So what I did at my high school was, I suggested having a career day for trades. Right. And we thought it was a great idea, and we did it. It was very successful.
And it worked out.
Right, because you got a captive audience.
Right.
All these people are coming in, and they are not looking to go to college. And listen, we're not anti-higher education by no stretch. I put 2 kids through school. Right. I went to school, was won a athletic scholarship, but higher education is awesome. I mean, we need doctors, lawyers, and accountants, and all those people that require higher education. But when you're coming out of school and you really don't know what you want to do, and there's debt that it just gets more and more expensive. You threw you threw a number out 100,000. That's kind of like nothing these
par
days.
For the course.
What it costs to go to school, and then you get that entry level job coming out of college. It doesn't even match what a probationary apprentice is getting here. Right. So, it's talking to the parents, but if you want to, I do
because I want to put those doors there for the young, the youth of America to open. Sure. And a way to do that is having that separate outreach event at the school for the trades, for people that are interested. Hey, don't just write this off as a dirty job. You can do really well with this, and have, establish a forum for them to ask questions. Right. Because it wasn't there for me to ask those questions. So, very much you looked at like, okay, people organized, trades became very relevant. That established the, industrializing of America as a whole, and, worked towards, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. You see how that was relevant then, and you're kind of like, oh, we're evolving from that. Is kind of, it seemed like that was the air in the room. Everyone's going to do higher education now. Well, without the trades, you're not going to have the buildings for the higher education to happen in. Right. You're not going to move these people around. They're relevant. These jobs are required. And they're great jobs, and you can do really well for yourself in any field, with any trade, with any union. Right. So establishing the platform for students to open those doors, it's something I'm very interested in. I'd love to do that. I'd be forever grateful if we could get something going. It'd be great. Yeah, listen, I'll come up there, and it's part of what we're required to do. Right. By the state, when we do recruitments, we have to do outreach. But to me, I don't care if it's required or not. It's more than a requirement. It is. Right. When we go, and we've seen so much talent. Right. And plucking a kid out of a school, or steering him to a direct entry program, or even if he's like, you know what, I have to go to college. It's just what I have to do, and whatever. I'm like, good. You know what? Go for engineering then. Do that. Yeah. Go for the right thing. Focus on that thing. Don't go for, some of these majors out there that it's not going to provide nothing. Right. So mechanical, electrical engineering are 2 things that now, even an associate's degree, people be like, associate's degree is what's that? Well, you know what? That's gold for the trades. Yeah. When we do a recruitment, that we see 2 years, kid went to electrical engineering. Well, come on. Yeah. Bring it on, bro. And do it. So all the trades look at that. Right. So it's that kind of message that, just opening the eyes that this is another option. And that kid might save your business card and after that 2 years,
It
your phone
happens.
might be ringing, and
It happens.
that's the goal.
It happens.
Yeah.
So, listen, I look forward to doing that with you. Please reach out to me. It was really nice having you down. It was a
Likewise,
pleasure.
this was great.
It was a pleasure talking to you. I love your story. You know,
Awesome.
and it's a story that, you know, the guys need to hear and
Right.
understand that, you know, again, going back, you know, there's a lot of successes to organizing. It's just not,
Yeah.
it's just not bringing the whole shop. You know, you're listen, if it wasn't for organizing, would you be here?
No.
Right?
Yeah. Love, hate, or draw.
So I'll speak for William Cosmo and say, thank God for organizing.
Amen.
Right?
Amen, brother.
All right, pal.
Awesome.
Well, listen, work safe out there. Appreciate you coming down, and I look forward to seeing you.
Likewise. Thank
All right,
you.
bro. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Who's going for coffee?